live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. This is your home of fearless, credible and independent journalism. Our lead stories this hour. Several families homeless as many others injured following an explosion which has killed 3 people in Onyinanofo in the Ashanti region. We're live on the ground as 3 children who went missing after the explosion are found unscathed. And from resignation of North Tongo MP as member of the appointment committee to warnings by the minority against deputy ministerial nominees occupying their offices even ahead of their vetting. We are live in Parliament, which resumed today with several issues to consider. And Africa commemorates Union Day in the midst of an alleged attempted coup in Mali, with the country's leaders taken by the military to their base. We're live in Mali as we head also to DR Congo, where lava from volcanic explosion spreads through communities, flattening over 500 homes. Details as several children go missing. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignelu, affordable, safe sanitation. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. We're streaming live on YouTube and on our social media handles. You can interact with us on WhatsApp on 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the details now. The tanker explosion that killed 3 at Onyinanofo in the Ashanti region has been attributed to a wrongfully parked Ford Transit van. Preliminary investigations by the police at Mankraso point to the driver of the Ford Transit van impeding the tanker from negotiating a curve. The tanker negotiating the long curve drove into the van parked in the tanker's lane, causing that explosion. This afternoon, we have updates from the police and NADMO as we look into the desperate lives of residents without any shelter. We'll take you there live shortly, but first, here is a report filed earlier by Nanaya Ojima looking at the devastation of the explosion.
Kwame Asare, who was drying his cocoa at the time of the incident, was nearly killed by the tanker. According to him, the diesel tanker lost balance while speeding and drove into a packed Ford Transit van before it caught fire. The tanker driver lost control and drove into the van. The tanker skidded into the village. The fire started immediately. Seth Edu, who is recovering from a stroke, is the father of the toddler who was killed in the incident. He was outside his home as the toddler slept at the time of the incident. But for his condition, he could have saved his son.
The
whole of the left part of my body is numb. I can't carry the child. It was between saving myself and perishing with him. Later, someone offered to carry me on his back to take me to safety. The fire service intervened to control the spread of the inferno. ADO1, Wikana Badomi, led the fire team.
So quickly what we did was to try to check the spread, protect the other building, preventing the fire from, affecting the other structures that were, nearby. So that was the strategy we used. So when we were able to successfully contain or control the spread, then we came back to the container, to the tanker, and then put out the fire.
At the time of the incident, many were out on their farms. Children who were home ran into bushes and other communities for safety. At the time of filing this report, 3 children remained missing. Residents are disturbed.
The
They went separate ways, so we have to move in all directions to find them.
Any ma dear demonia men in Ashi, yes, a biaka. You to make us say a biashi, me bakra, me bla banashi, me banashi, condemn me blan so catching.
Meanwhile, the National Disaster Management Organization has been to the scene assessing the damage. Together with the District Assembly, some arrangements were made for the affected persons to pass the night. Eric Nanajiman Prempe is Director General of NADMO.
We don't have hostels and hotels here. So we're looking at classrooms and the church buildings. The assembly, the DC is here. He's going back to the district capital to arrange for some mosquito nets and some blankets for them. I have called NADMO headquarters. They are also arranging to get some mattresses and other things. By tomorrow morning, they will also be here. We are doing the little we can to help the people who are homeless. In fact, apart from the Cheese Palace and few places, almost everybody has been rendered homeless now.
For JoyNews, Nana Ojima reporting.
And that's a report put together by Nana Ojima, who is now connecting with me here. He was earlier in the community. Now, let's start with the condition of those who were injured. How are they faring?
So from the investigation that I've been conducting in the hospitals.
Nana, let's try to reposition you. Let's try to reposition you and let's see if that works.
The information.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Nana, if you can reposition, we can try that once again. Otherwise, let's try and raise Nana on the phone and see how that goes. But he has visited this community. We're told that the explosion affected every home in the community except 4. And those are visuals that you are seeing there from Nana Ojima, who is now joining me once again. Let's try this phone. Nana, so I was saying that we should start with the condition of the injured. How are they faring?
From the conversations I've been having with the medical officers at the hospitals where these victims were taken to, all of them have been treated and discharged, but one person. So the information is that Atiwa also closer to where the incident happened. There's one person still at the hospital, but according to the medical professionals, this person should be fit to go home by tomorrow.
Let's talk about the homes that were affected. We're told that the people who live in these homes are homeless at the moment. What's going on in that area?
Yes, nothing has really changed, except that yesterday the information was that the district chief executive and the NADMO are partnering to ensure that they find these people. So the information I got this morning of what I've been finding out from the ground is that the NADMO and the district chief executive were able to provide these people with some blankets, and also they had mosquito nets and mosquito coils which could help them pass the night in the basic school in this area. So the basic school and another church in the area provided shelter for these families. Now, this morning, before I left there, the NADMO, the Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization was there, and he presented some relief items to these persons, and the items include mattresses, roofing sheets, and blankets, and also food for their survival in the next few days. So NADMO has given them some relief items, and they're expected to pass the night in the school and also the church, which provided shelter for them last night.
Nana, I will come to talk a bit more about what's happening on the ground at the moment as of when you left the place. But then, as you said, preliminary investigations into this explosion is pointing to what they're calling wrongful parking. We can hear from the crime officer, who is Superintendent Vincent Adote now.
Is that the Ford Transit driver parked in the opposite direction. The car was moving from, the Ford Transit driver was moving from Tepa towards Mankranso, and he parked in the opposite lane. Whilst it was about to move, the fuel tanker also appeared from Kumasi direction towards Tepa, and in order to save the situation, somehow they had a crash which caused the Ford transit vehicle to be dragged to the opposite, to its main lane facing the town. So this area being a curve, no one would have expected a good driver to stop there or park there to take passengers. Even if he had parked there, he should have exercised caution when he is taking off. And we can say with confidence that, in fact, the fault would have come from the Ford transit driver. For that much, we have to investigate him, prosecute him for the road traffic offense committed.
So that's the perspective of the crime officer. But then the NADMO has been presenting some relief items to the affected persons. And as you heard Nanayao say, some of the items include mattresses and blankets, some roofing sheets as well. Eric Nanajima Prempe is Director General for NADMO in the region.
We were here with you, and after everything, we promised the people that as early as possible, we need to come in to support them with some form of relief. Today, we are here to present all these items to them, from roofing sheet to food items and non-food items. So we've presented it to the chiefs and people on behalf of the president and the government of Ghana, as well as my organization, NADMO. So that's all what we came here to do the presentation to them. Already, there's a contractor on the road to repair the road. So what I'm going to do is to write officially to the Minister for Roads so that we take it up and see how possible we can add more road signs and other things so that we don't experience such occurrences again.
Well, subsequently, we'll see how that goes. But Nanayao Jima is still here on the phone with me. Nanayao, you went there this morning. This was a day after the explosion. The people must have been shaken. What more did they tell you today?
So many of these affected persons and persons in the community are still shocked by the situation. People are still yet to come to the realization that this actually happened yesterday. Now, the worst affected family, the Akwana clan, they call themselves, now they are separated. Someone have to live with other relatives within the community. Now you see a lot of people doing communal feeding, and the houses or the homes which were not affected are now feeding people from the affected homes, and a lot of them are not satisfied with the current condition or their present situation. But with the relief that today came from NADMO, some people believe they can start putting things together and make efforts towards rebuilding their homes and getting back in there.
What it means is that those children who have to go to school today might have a difficulty, doing that. Is there any updates by way of that in education?
Interestingly, the only basic school there today is totally closed down. Though the teachers are present, there are no students in these schools. None of these students could this morning go to school, and even their colleagues whose homes were not affected, they didn't see. Because from the information that I'm getting, a lot of these pupils came home to see what was happening. So there are those who actually witnessed the incident, and it made a lot of them run into the forest, which, they live along the forest, and most of them had to run into the forest. Some got injured in the process. So it looks like today it gave them some time to breathe in and also refresh themselves for subsequent school activities. But speaking with the head teacher and authorities of the school, they are yet to have some communication with their superiors to know how to address the situation.
Okay. Nana Aljuma, thank you very much. And it's certainly a developing story, and we'll keep our eyes on it to bring you the update. Now, communities within the catchment of Extra Gold Mining Limited in the Atiwa West District have been reeling under the impact, according to them, of the firm's mining operations. Residents say a number of people have died after falling into uncovered mining pits left behind by some subcontractors of the company. 3 of such deaths have been recorded in the past 1 year at Achim and Papetia. Several water bodies at Achim Ekropong, Achim Pameng, Achim Awanari and Achim Apapatia have also been destroyed. My colleague Ohemin Teria traveled to Atiwa. Here is his report.
Extra Gold Mining have been present in the Atiwa West District since 2006. It owns 5 mining leases, including the Banso and Pamin concessions. The company employed the services of subcontractors to mine in these concessions at Pamin, Apampetia, among others, on contracts. Residents accuse these subcontractors of degrading lands and destroying water bodies. The Operation Hot military task force has struck twice in 1 week on one of the mining sites at Pamin. This is one of the mining sites of MPP's women organizer, Kate Jamfua, situated at Achim Pami in the eastern region. In the last 1 week, this particular site has been raided twice by members of the Operation Hot Task Force. 7 excavators and 2 bulldozers have all been burnt down here. Behind me are some of them. This site, which can be compared to the size of about 200 football pitches, has had green vegetation totally destroyed and removed by mining activities. We are told this is just one of the mining concessions of Madam Kate Jamfua, which means there are several of these which we are yet to visit. Akwadro, Abresu, Teria, Aprabon, Akubonsu and Esioya and Minimpon streams all have been destroyed in Achim Apampetia, Arinare and Achim Ekropon. Others are Pamin and Banso. Residents say activities of the mining firm have impacted negatively on their lives as their immediate environment and water bodies are destroyed.
Etutu amna enkatasonom ne eyino even ha no mensu metumi akase beebi wo kwa na enkataso no nhyɛ de nkoyie aban hyehyɛ ne sɛ mo bi anko forest eno nko ade mebo minus na ba so ses cavita persi Atiwa forest mu opame ha de me hu bi ana insusem no so even so mbe adwuma kra on divert sene ekiafo no so ebinum one day one engage with farming no umutimi enya biye na ja adwuma de senior tie no ubenya baby trenching baby won so na achia kakra.
Some of them have fallen into deep mining pits left uncovered by these miners. In Pamin, for instance, at least 3 of such deaths have been recorded since 2007. Similar cases have been recorded at Apampetia, with 25-year-old Nicholas Bokum, also known as Shatawali, being the last victim.
Esagodo amna wotu nyine gu ho godin de na amna no kata so na eko ye ne bansfo no kata so so godin de wayade wase aduanu ewum na panta de wanye hwenemu ade ni nyine ejina Esagodo so oji 22% ti won wa ye adwuma nipa be sese o ye adwuma ye bia no oji percentage ti be kata so man no wankata so no Henry kwabrochiri mi amego faase ekotin kotobi no to nsumu amfichira ya oba obetwes kama Mrs. no eba no panta ne Esagodo betwa 250 man besine amana no wankata so ti Esagodo de ye mpon krom abiu papa bi be metenten ba miensa na okuani kofo na medi wochi okotomo ongu enipa 3 me ho faase no ana brother baako. The
unresolved deaths and destruction to the environment has compelled the youth of Apampetia to come together to fight for the community. about 100 members of the concerned youth of Ampetiasi, they will resist any attempt by Extra Gold to mine in the area again. Albert Ofosu speaks for the group.
Our river bodies and our cocoa farms are all in danger due to the lack of inadequate quality work they are doing here. Though we are not safe due to the tactics the miners play when it comes to this fight. We are more than 100 and we are prepared to fight this fight because it is our last forest and in this country. That is the Atiwa forest. So we will protect the forest. We will not allow them to enter into our forest.
Meanwhile, officials of Extra Gold Mining have declined comments. Director Victor Nkansa, in a text message, said the company will not do interviews, but rather lawyers would state position in addition to initial press release. From Atiwa in the Eastern Region for JoyNews, Ohimintewia reporting.
Ohimintewia with that report there. Now, questions about the outcome of a government investigations into alleged corruption in the procurement of the $510 million Ameri power plant by the Mahama administration as Ghana prepares to take over ownership. We'll be hearing from the former Power Minister, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, who says the deal was above board. It's been more than 4 years since those allegations of fraud and underhand dealings were made in the agreement. The 250-megawatt power plant was procured in 2016 to augment Ghana's electricity generation at the height of the energy crisis under the John Mahama administration, amid allegations that it was overpriced by $50 million. The Akufo-Addo administration had pledged to investigate it. Although the agreement was eventually reviewed, government has yet to say what crimes were committed and those who committed these crimes. Head of our energy desk, Israel Ai, has more in the following report for Total Recall.
The Ameri Power Agreement was one of those deals the New Patriotic Party, then in opposition, said was tainted with corruption. The agreement was structured such that Ameri would be paid for the plant from the tariffs paid by consumers of the electricity it generates over a period of 5 years. Dr. Baumia, who was then running mate to candidate Akufo-Addo, argued why the contract at $510 million was overpriced.
The issue of the Ameri Power deal is one episode of issues bordering on corruption and the failure to ensure value for money for the people of Ghana. In this deal, Ghana is basically purchasing 10 power gas plants for $510 million, even though the same plants can be acquired from GE, from the market, for $220 million.
On assumption of power in 2017, President Akufo-Addo, in his first State of the Nation address, announced a review of all power purchase agreements, including the Ameri deal.
Government is conducting a review of all the power agreements entered into by the previous government in order to prioritize, renegotiate, defer or cancel outright if necessary in the national interest.
A committee chaired by Philip Addison, which looked at the deal and traveled to the United Arab Emirates, concluded in 2017 that it should be renegotiated because it was overpriced by about $150 million. The police in July of 2017 visited the homes of some officials believed to have knowledge of the Ameri agreement in search of documents relating to the deal.
I found about 6 people with a warrant stating that we were searching for laptops and phone because I was suspected of causing financial loss to the nation with regards to the Ameri project, and I was completely taken aback because as a technocrat that I've served this country, I have now distinguished since President Kufuor's era. I thought I didn't deserve this because I only implement. I don't make decisions. I don't decide who goes where. The equipment is acquired and I install, and I do day and night, putting myself at risk to get it done.
The Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police Service at the time, David Eklu, explained the CID officers had visited on a court order to look for evidence to find out if someone was culpable.
What we did was to execute a warrant or a court order to search his premises to look for evidence in relation to an issue that the police wants to find out whether somebody is culpable or not.
The renegotiated Ameri deal by then Energy Minister Boakye Jackson extended the duration of the agreement to 15 years from 5 and reduced the cost of power from 14.6 cents to 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour. This was, however, condemned by many as worse than the original agreement and was eventually scrapped and the minister relieved of his post. Even though no reason was given for the minister's dismissal, many linked it to the revision of the Ameri deal. It's been 5 years since Ghana procured the Ameri plant, which also means that it is time for ownership to revert to the country. Government has already indicated the plant will be relocated to Kumasi to resolve the power supply challenges being experienced in that part of the country.
The Ministry of Energy has taken a decision. As we analyzed, we saw that it is best if we could get a generator around Kumasi. So the ministry has taken a decision that the Ameri power plant should be moved to Kumasi. So efforts are being put in place to ensure that gas infrastructure is sent to Kumasi to feed the Ameri power plant once that movement is done. When this is completed, our system will become even more resilient.
JoyNews is learning government has also initiated plans to take over ownership of the plant. As far as the investigations into criminality by the police CID are concerned, no prosecutions of the former ministers and officials whose homes were searched have been initiated. It is, however, not clear if government would ever make public the report on the investigations.
Israel is head of our energy desk with that report there. Well, as far as the investigation into corrupt dealings is concerned, government has yet to publish details of a CID probe into the alleged corruption. Former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor says government's failure to prove allegations of wrongdoing in the procurement of the Ameri power plant affirms his position that all this while that the deal was above board. The minister, under whose watch the emergency power plant was acquired in 2016 for $510 million, was the subject of investigations by the police CID, along with 2 others over claims the generators were overpriced. He spoke to Israel, who first asked if he'd been charged, I beg your pardon.
Officially, no. I've followed up, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't find anything incriminating. There was absolutely no criminality. All the decisions were above board.
But do you think you would have done things better if you had been given the chance to redo this?
Well, the only other thing I want to do differently is that there should have been a little bit more of education as to what build, own, operate, and transfer really entails. Because that was the first time we were going outside the normal route of purely independent IPP, and then we just pay for the energy. But in Ameri, we are not just going to pay for energy, but we are also going to own the plant. And therefore, it's slightly bit more complicated than the regular IPP.
Wouldn't it have been better if we went to buy the generators rather than go through all these third parties?
Well, if you have the money, it will always be better to go and buy. If you have the money to buy. Did we have the resources at the time? No. And if you don't have the resources, rather than just contracting the service, if there is an arrangement by which you pay a little more, but get to own the facility, get to own the plant, I believe owning the plant is always a better deal. Fortunately, it is a modular plant, and that gives it some flexibility, and I believe we we are about to exercise that flexibility.
So as it is now, the plant is going to be relocated to Kumasi. What do you make of that idea?
Well, it just reaffirms what we had always known from the beginning, that if the plant is yours and the plant is modular, you can move it to meet national demand when such peculiar demand stands up.
As a Dr. Komna Donko, the former power minister, speaking to head of our energy desk, Israel Lai. Now I'll take you to Parliament. The minority there is warning some deputy minister designate who it says are going ahead of Parliament and acting in their designated portfolios. According to the minority leader Haruna Idriso, any attempt by the nominees to leap before their time would be at their own peril. This warning comes ahead of the vetting of the ministers of state and deputy ministers next week. In his welcome address to the House, which has resumed its sittings today, the Tamale South MP said the practice of nominees assuming office ahead of their parliamentary approval is not the best democratic practice. Kwesi Parker Wilson is joining me from Parliament to give us details of what's going on there. Hello, Parker.
Hello, Gifty.
So let's begin with much more details of what the minority leader had to say when he addressed the House today when they resumed.
Okay, so there are quite a number of issues he raised on the floor. He first started with what he calls the religious intolerance that is currently going on in the country, and questioned religious leaders against any action that could potentially disturb the peace that we have enjoyed over the years gone by. And this was in reference to the issue with the Islamic young girl or the Muslim young girl and the Wesley Girls Senior High School saga. He then moved on to now talk about the issue of the deputy ministers who are yet to be vetted by the vetting committee. In fact, he made an interesting revelation that he is compiling video records of all these nominees who have assumed office without parliamentary approval. In fact, in his own words, they are running after themselves, and that it will be a peril to their own lives. So he says he's waiting for them at the vetting, and when, of course, they appear before them, definitely he will hold them accountable. Then he moved on.
Parker, let's hang on. Let's hang on a bit with the deputy ministerial nominees.
Right.
Does he provide to the House any concrete example or any evidence, so to speak, to the effect that these people are already acting in their portfolios, or is it that he's seen them going to the office?
Well, he said that he has seen them. Well, he didn't provide any hardcore evidence to the House, except to just mention it by word of mouth that he's seen some of the nominees engaged in such practice. But for him, he's gathering his evidence. He's asked his people to put together video recordings of all these ministers who have assumed their role before the parliamentary approval. In fact, Gifty, there are some of them whom we've already started talking to, and they have been on several press conferences to answer questions and all of that. So these are the individuals he is talking about, and these are the videos he has asked his people to put together. So on the day of vetting, which we've been told that it's June 2, when they appear before them, he's going to place them and ask them to answer questions why they were at the press conferences, why they answer the questions, when in fact Parliament hasn't given them the backing to do so. So until you're given the backing by Parliament to serve as a deputy minister, you have no business doing the work as a deputy minister. So that has been the caution to these deputy ministers who have now assumed the role of a deputy minister and then working as far as their portfolio is concerned.
Well, now that he's told them ahead of the vetting itself, I'm sure they will be preparing themselves properly to meet them.
I'm sure they will
to meet them at the vetting. But Parker, he also spoke again about something else that you were mentioning. Does it have to do with the suppose as they're calling it? Right, go ahead.
Yeah, so Haruna Idriso says that the country is running at a snail pace, and thus he attributes it to the lack of appointment of MMDCs and CEOs as well. I'm sure you know that we are in the 5th month, going on to the 6th month, and yet the president hasn't appointed MMDCs. As we speak, we are told that a lot of individuals have filed applications to be vetted and approved subsequently as the MMDCs, but that is yet to happen. Again, chief executive officers have not been appointed to man their various agencies, and that is working against the ministries and, by extension, the work of government. So, Haruna Iddrisu, in his view, is asking the president to, as a matter of urgency, quickly do that, because the local assembly, the local government, as we speak, is almost at a halt. Nothing is happening. They are not able to take any policy decision. Most of them are acting. They are not too sure whether they are going to continue their term or not. So these are the things that the minority leader is asking the president to quickly resolve so that the country can move on. Because he talks about supersonic speed. He wants to accelerate the development. But according to Haruna Iddrisu, with this type of delay, would definitely not accelerate the kind of development we expect as a nation. And so that was the advice to the president, which of course is hoping that he's going to abide by it and quickly do so as a matter of urgency.
Well, Parker, in the meantime, the ranking member on the Roads and Highways Committee, Kwame Agboja, has been casting some doubt on the ability of government to construct the 20 interchanges by the end of 2024. We know that he held a press conference and observed that the budgetary allocation for the Roads Ministry, according to him, is woefully inadequate and that it cannot finance the projects as advertised by the Roads Minister. Do tell us more from that press conference.
To quote specifically the words of Kwame Agboja, he says that all the things that the minister came to say, or the project he advertised last Sunday, is only a talk show, and that the government and of course the minister do not have the capacity, the financial muscle to prosecute and realize all the projects he talked about. And this includes the 20 interchanges that you just mentioned, and again, a 6-kilometer road across the country, together with the 4-kilometer road project in the country as well. And for Kwame Agboja, all the things the minister said, except the construction of the 20 interchanges, are old things. It's been on the map or the drawing board for a very long time. In fact, in his words, he put it that the construction of the 6-kilometer road project across the country should have been done in 2020, by the end of 2020. We're already in 2021, and nothing has happened. In fact, contractors are not on site. All the projects he mentioned, not a single contractor is on site. So it's quite shocking and surprising to see the Minister for Roads talk about the fact that government is committed to the construction of roads. Again, he moved on to talk about the Cocoa Road project. According to Kwame Agboja, that project has been inflated. He gave an amount which he believes that Parliament should have to go into it and ensure that the right thing is being done. Because at the time the NPP were coming into power, they equally suspended the construction of road projects on the basis that the projects were inflated. And as we speak, the report is yet to be released. In fact, today in the morning, he told us that he was going to file a question to someone, the minister, appeared before the House to answer questions on that particular report. Huge sums of taxpayers' money were involved in the investigation. We are yet to get the report. And so, though we don't have any indication that he filed the question, but however, we are told that he will do so to summon the minister before the House to answer questions on what happened to the Cocoa Road projects, which were suspended when the NPP won power and assumed power in 2017, that were suspended. So these are some of the things that Kwame Agboja has been talking about this morning.
Interesting, Parker. But then there's another issue about the resignation of the, if we go back to the appointment committee, the resignation of Member of Parliament for North Tongu, Kujato Ablakwa, that the Speaker has been addressing. That and vaccination are the two things I'll wrap up with you on. Let's begin with the resignation of the Honourable Member of Parliament for North Tongu.
In fact, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Baben, described it as purported resignation. And for him, he said that, you know, he at the time, people raised concerns over why he accepted the resignation. Well, he said that as the chairman of the...
Parker, let me just interrupt you rudely and briefly. Let's hear from the Member of Parliament, Mr. Agboja, on the concerns that he's raised about government's ability to deliver on the roads. And then we come back to the resignation. Hang on for me, Parker. Let's listen to Mr. Agboja now.
Many things. I wonder why the media didn't ask the minister, how much is your budget for 2021? The entire budget for the ministry for 2021 is just 2.4 billion. And my brothers and sisters, less than 1 billion or just about 1 billion is what is earmarked for capital investment. So how is the minister supposed to pay for the billions of projects he's talking about out of 1 billion? The minister is unable to impress on the finance minister to provide enough resources. And by the time the finance minister provides resources, my brothers and sisters, do you know the sad story? Because of this policy of contractors being paid, interest on delayed certificate, sometimes the interest on the payment is as high as 40%. So 40%, sometimes 40% of money paid to contractors doesn't even go to the contractor, it goes to the people who borrow money to the contractor. So the value doesn't add up. Two, the minister is unable to tell the finance minister to decap the road fund. In the 2020-21 budget, you will notice that the Minister of Finance agreed that the road fund will get about 1.8 billion Ghana cedi. But then, only 1 billion will be available to the road ministry. The Minister of Finance takes away that money and then use it for consumption and then later pay interest on that money. And that is why we are saying that we agree with government that we must get more resources to the road ministry to improve our roads. We would support government in that endeavor, but we shall not support government to increase road tolls unless government is able to decap road fund, give all that money to the road ministry, and then we can discuss the gap that will be left. Until that time, they cannot get the support of our side of the house to increase road tolls. The other thing we want to talk about is this. The ministry is talking about 6,000 kilometers of road. My brothers and sisters, in this house, you know that some of the loans we have approved, the NPP government awards projects where 1 kilometer is sometimes $2 million. So if you're going to build 6,000 kilometers, at what rate? And where are the roads supposed to be going to? In effect, the 1 billion Ghana cedis that is available as capital investment could build less than 300 kilometers. So where from the money to build the 6,000 kilometers the minister is talking about? Now, if you look at one of the things the minister talked about in terms of the number of roads that will be completed, already, my brothers and sisters, feeder roads alone have got almost 8,000 kilometers of road under contract, ongoing right now. So if you're telling us that feeder roads alone have got almost 8,000, 9,000 kilometers of road under contract, and you are saying you are going to complete only 6,000 until 2024, who are you kidding? Whose project is going to be suspended? Whose project are you not going to continue? The other one is about the cost of projects, and we have always complained about the cost of projects. The minister deliberately didn't tell you, he just threw some figures out. We know, for instance, the minister and his government have been complaining vehemently when they were in opposition about the 5-year, 5 billion Cocoa Road program.
So that cocoa program that the cocoa roads that he's talking about is what Parker rightfully mentioned when he earlier spoke to us. This is a member of the Rules and Transport Committee, governs Agboja there. Let me wrap up with Parker, who is still standing by in Parliament for us. Parker, you were referring to you say the Speaker calls it the purported resignation of the Honourable Member of Parliament for North Tong. Tell us more.
Well, he said that at the time people raised concerns about why he accepted his resignation. And the explanation he gave was that, well, as the chairman of that committee, I mean, he actually takes an oversight responsibility of that select committee. It was important that he takes the resignation and refers same to the select committee. And so the committee on selection will now have to determine whether or not to accept the resignation. So the understanding one gets is it appears that the Member of Parliament for North Tong's resignation is yet to be either accepted or rejected by Parliament. That is until perhaps we get to know the final report which will be presented to the House, because the Speaker of Parliament indicated that the committee will soon put together a report and submit same to the House for consideration. So that report would detail or capture or let us know whether indeed his resignation letter has been accepted by the committee, and as a matter of fact, they're going to reconstitute the vetting committee, or it will be rejected. It's going to be an interesting start if the Senate committee at the end of the day rejects the resignation letter of Mr. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. That means he will be compelled to still stay on the vetting committee and carry his duty as a member of Parliament. There has been an argument that as a member of Parliament, if you choose to resign from the vetting committee, it is equally fair that he also resign as a member of Parliament, because being a member of the committee, you are doing your work as a member of Parliament. So we are yet to receive the report from the committee as stated by the Speaker of Parliament. So that is what we know. And Gifty, finally, before I go, let me touch briefly on the issue of the allegation put together by the former Special Prosecutor, Martin Amidu. I have been speaking to some of the members of Parliament. In fact, ABF Husseini happens to be cited in that report. He tells me, or he has challenged Mr. Amidu to prove the allegation he's making that indeed some NDC members were not prosecuted over the double salary saga just because the president wanted his ministers to go through. And if you listen to the majority side, they are of the view that so Martin Amidu knew the president was going to win a second term, and because of that, he instructed the then AG not to prosecute the NDC MP, so that when he comes for the second term, his ministers would be approved. That is an interesting thought that they are putting together. But the odd majority and minority agree that in spite of the instruction given to the then AG, Martin Amidu had the powers to still go ahead and prosecute the NDC officials he believed were involved in the double salary saga. And they started the issue of Mahama Yaga when he single-handedly went to court and prosecuted the matter. And of course, we all know the outcome of that particular incident. So this has been some of the thoughts or reactions from the members of Parliament from the NDC side and the NPP side as far as the allegations of Martin Amidu is concerned.
And Paka, we're wrapping up, but just touch briefly on the vaccination of the MPs. You had the Speaker has been sharing some figures with you.
Right, so we all know that the country is currently going through the second phase of the vaccination exercise, so as members of Parliament. So far, we are told that almost 109 MPs have been fully vaccinated. They have taken all their dose. Over 164 management of Parliament have also been vaccinated. But if you look at the numbers, that is quite small. There are quite a number of people here in Parliament who are yet to receive their second jab. And so the Speaker this morning assured the members of the House, including the Parliamentary Service, that arrangements are being made with the Health Minister to quickly ensure that any individual who works within the precinct of Parliament is given the second dose or is fully vaccinated, so that at least we can attain the herd immunity here in Parliament, and also going forward protect and safeguard the lives of members of Parliament and also those working here in Parliament.
Paka, thank you very much. Kwesi Paka Wilson, the parliamentary correspondent there, bringing us up to speed on what's happening quite a lot in Parliament, I must say. I need to take a very quick break. When I return, by the way, I'm taking you outside the country. We go to Mali. You know what's been happening there already. I understand there is an alleged attempted coup there, and that will be the second in less than 2 years. We're told that the leader of the country and some other, his other counterparts have been taken by the military. When we come back, we'll go live to Mali. But in DR Congo, something terrible is also happening. Lava from the volcanic explosion is sweeping through towns. Already, several people have been affected. We'll tell you that when we go to DR Congo as well. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. Mali's president and prime minister have been ousted by the officer who led last year's coup and became vice president of an interim government. Colonel Assimi Goïta says President Ba Ndao and Prime Minister Mokhtar Ouani failed in their duties and were seeking to sabotage the country's transition. They were arrested hours after a government reshuffle which saw 2 senior army officers replaced. Colonel Goïta says although elections will still go ahead next year as planned. Let's go live to Mali and speak with Mohamed Salaha. He's a freelance journalist in Mali. Mohamed, thank you so much. Let's begin with what people know as triggered the arrest of the president by the military.
As you mentioned in the title, so the result of the new cabinet when 2 key persons of the former junta, led by Assimi Goïta, who is in charge of vice president of the transition, and he is the president of CNSP. CNSP is the group of military who deposed the former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. So when the president and the prime minister took out the composition of the new government, 2 key persons of the junta were not member of that government, especially the colonel minister of defense and another colonel who is minister of security. So this is where the frustration came from, and once those frustrations came out, the former junta took the president and his prime minister to Kati, which is a town, garrison town located in 15 kilometers of Bamako, and which also is the base of the former CNSP. So since yesterday, the president and his prime minister are detained between the hands of the junta. So the vice president now says to power again and say that the president has violated the charter of the transition by settle a new government without consulting him. So that's why they arrested the president and the prime minister.
Does that mean that the military has been speaking to the people of Mali? Is this the reason they are giving to everybody?
Before they arrest the president and the president, the prime minister, and other collaborators, they didn't give any reason. As soon as the composition of the government were out, confusion were down, and the military went directly to the prime minister's house and the president's house, taking them by force to their military base, which is in Kati. They didn't give any reason for those arrestations. And after 2 days, the vice president Assimi Goïta have sent his communication advisor on national TV to read a statement. And this statement, the communicator showed that the president have violated according to the statement, the president had violated the charter of the transition, and they did not consult the vice president, and that's why I say what they said in the statement. The vice president saw himself as obliged to act to preserve the transitional charter and defend the republic, and blast out of their prerogation the president and the prime minister as
in support position until next year's election. And so when the president now, appoints ministers or another government without the military, they see it as a violation of the transitional charter. At this point, what is happening in Mali right now?
Okay, this is why the vice president said it's not. He said it's a violation of the charter, but in the charter, it's not written down that the president should consult the vice president or the prime minister should consult the vice president. It's not written, but it's according to the vice president that is a violation. Coming back to the current situation, people are going to their business, people are doing their daily life, but the situation is confused. The situation is very confused at Kati, which the president and the prime minister are detained because security have been reinforced at the entrance of the camp, Sunjata Keita camp in Kati, and especially around the house of Assimi Keita, who is now the strong man, between brackets, the strong man of Mali. When we come back to Bamako, the capital city, yeah, people are going to their business. But since yesterday night, you've called for protests against the situation, against how the military are doing now, taking the power, how they arrested the president and the prime minister. They call for protests against that. That's why yesterday night some youth were gathered at Independence Place, and also this morning some youth were gathered at the same place, but the police came to disperse them. It's important to notice that people are against the current situation, how the military are doing, how the military want to take the power. People call the military to go back to the barrack, and also international community condemn it, and they call for the release of the president and the prime minister. France has condemned it, United Nations has condemned it, ECOWAS, African Union, France, everybody is condemning the way those military are trying to put hands on a whole country for personal interest. And now ECOWAS, which is a West Africa Regional Board delegation, is in Mali currently trying to see clearly what happened, why those military took this action, and why they want to do. Hopefully, ECOWAS will find a solution to this crisis, which Malians do not need.
Tell me about your own experience as a journalist, and the other journalists who are there in Mali. At this point, is it free? Is there free press in Mali? Are people allowed, are media organizations allowed to cover what is happening the way that professional journalists should? Or is there some sort of restriction when it comes to how you do your work? Hello, Mohammed. Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, please go ahead.
Journalists are free to cover the situation, but the problem is we do not have access to information. The military do not communicate because the situation, they want to master the situation, they want to control everything. By starting communicating on the situation, some information might go out that they want to control now. But journalists are going to Kati, but they do not have access to information. But I think journalists have freedom to cover, because it's not like they took guns against journalism. No, we have freedom to cover, but the challenge is that they do not communicate, they do not give information at this stage. But hopefully in the coming hour, we will see clear in this situation.
You told me that people are going about their business in Bamako, I mean in Kati, in the town, people in Mali generally, people are going about their business. What I want to find out is that what is a typical picture like in Mali? Do you have the military still in charge of government, maybe government buildings, or do you have civilians just at the ministries, for example, at the seat of government? What is happening there?
life is normal in Bamako. Even in Kati, which is the garrison city, life is normal. It's not like the previous coup when the former junta deposed the former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keita in August 2020. No, life is normal. We cannot see militaries in the streets, around the public building, around the national channel. No, life is normal. People are going on their business. That shows everything is concentrated inside Kati, which is the garrison, and in a special area, which the president, the prime minister, some collaborator, the junta are there. So life is normal. There is no fear in the city. Everything is going normally. So you can see that Malians just want the situation to end.
And have the people of Mali heard from the family members of the president and the prime minister, or anybody close to them? Have they been speaking to Malians?
United Nations mission in Mali, MINUSMA, is negotiating, trying to get access to detain the president, prime minister, and other collaborator, because they want to know in which condition they are detained. So we have information that one of them had access to its doctor for medical reason, and also human rights defenders have given a statement, a press statement, show their inquiry about the condition of detention. They call for normal condition of detention. At this moment, they are not free for their movement. I mean, they detain the president, the prime minister, and other collaborators. They are between the hand of the junta. 24 hours, around 24 hours, but they are not free. But United Nations is still trying to see how they can get access to them, and hopefully ECOWAS will also get access to them and exchange with them about the condition of detention, and hopefully how to end this situation.
Mohammed, I'll say a very big thanks to you. We really appreciate you breaking down what's happening to us. And thankfully, like you say, life is back to normal. You don't have military presence on your roads there, which sounds good. But hopefully this matter will be resolved amicably. And between now and tomorrow, I'm sure that the AU, the UN, all the agencies that are mediating would have found a solution. And hopefully we can come back to you for good news. Mohammed Salaha is a freelance journalist. He's joining us all the way from Mali, where he's giving us details of what's happening. Mohammed, thank you. Now, Parliament's primary role, aside from making laws, is to provide oversight on the executive arm of government and ensure accountability in all aspects of governance. But President Akufo-Addo himself, a three-time MP, is unconvinced about that role. Addressing the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa, he called on Parliament to build its capacity for effective oversight.
We cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament in exercising the checks and balances needed on the executive. We cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament as the voice of the people. And we cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament in setting the tone of public discourse in the country. It is for the good of our countries that parliaments on the continent develop the capacity to insist on accountability in all aspects of our lives, especially in our governance. For no institution is better suited to do this than the one composed of the representatives of the people. I am a strong believer in the work of Parliament, and as we strive to deepen continental integration and strengthen ties that exist between our respective countries, we should create room for our respective parliaments to learn from each other, and through that process, enhance the prospects of continental integration. It is one of the best ways to realize the objects of Agenda 2063 and help create the Africa we all want for in our time.
The president also talked about economic recovery and collaboration between African countries on manufacturing vaccines instead of depending heavily on the West in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic.
The success or failure of our modernization will be determined largely by how well we preserve what is good about our culture whilst modifying the aspects that no longer suit our needs. As we dedicate this year to the promotion of Africa's arts, culture, and heritage, against the background of increasing global expression of interest and investments in the sector, which should use the occasion to promote the patenting of Africa's creative designs, to protect intellectual property, folklore, and traditional knowledge, and adopt other measures to protect us against counterfeiting and piracy. The Africa we want may never be realized if we turn our backs on our culture, customs, and heritage. One thing the pandemic of COVID-19 has taught all of us is that we must hasten the process of regional and continental integration, because acting together will boost our capacity to succeed. From our inability to make our own diagnostic tests, to the scramble for vaccines, and to the shocks our respective economies have suffered, resulting in a recession on the continent, it is obvious that we need each other, and more so in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. We must encourage South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal, Ghana, and others to develop the capacity to produce our own vaccines so that we can more effectively deal with future pandemics and not be dependent on foreign supplies and benevolence for the protection of our peoples. It is the accelerated economic integration of committed nations on the continent that will breathe new life into the African Union and deliver the benefits of African integration to the doorsteps of the African peoples. One critical instrument for the realization of this is the African Continental Free Trade Area, whose trading commenced on 1st January. Ghana has had the good fortune to be awarded the honor of hosting the Secretariat of the AFCFTA. Acting President, honorable members, we have always lamented the low volume of trade between the countries on the continent, which currently stands at some 16% of our combined GDP. And yet we all know that this is one of the areas in which we have to improve if we are to make progress in bringing prosperity to our peoples. Intra-regional trade in the European Union, for example, stands at 75% of theirs. It is my belief that the operation of the AFCFTA, comprising a market of some 1.2 billion people, with a combined GDP of $3 trillion United States dollars, marks a seminal moment in changing the way business is conducted among our nations. It provides the vehicle for us to trade amongst each other in a more modern and sophisticated manner, and will give us protection on how we deal with other trading blocs.
You're welcome back. A member of parliament on the ticket of the NDC, David Vonde, has been granted bail in the sum of 2 million cedis. He has been charged with fraud in a $2.4 million sale of land to a private company. The Attorney General's office says investigations revealed that Mr. Vonde did not own the land, yet attempted to sell it to the company. Court correspondent Joseph Akablay has the rest of the story.
The Chifu Atimokwa MP is accused of collecting $2.4 million between August 2015 and 2016 under the guise of selling a tract of land to a private company. Per the facts of the case, Mr. Vonde reportedly presented himself as a CEO of another private company during the transaction. The land in dispute is located at Frafraha in the Adentan municipality. State prosecutors say investigations revealed that Mr. Vondi gave the company lands that did not belong to him and also did not return the huge cash he collected from the company when the company demanded their money back. He has been charged with 2 counts of defrauding by false pretense and money laundering. The MP was called to respond to the charges on Tuesday. He told the court he was not guilty of the charges against him. His lawyers, led by Edigi Tamaklu, urged the court to grant him bail. He explained that the MP has so far cooperated with investigations and is willing to make himself available anytime he's needed by the court. The court handed the state prosecutors 2 weeks to make available to the MP all documents they intend to use against him as evidence. The prosecutors are also to file witness statements to be used as well. Mr. Vondi was meanwhile granted bail in a sum of 2 million cedis. The case has been adjourned to June 30 for case management conference.
Joseph Akable with that report. Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu says the vetting committee in Parliament has already begun thorough background checks on the Special Prosecutor nominee, Kisi Ajabeng. The checks, according to the Swami MP, are to establish the eligibility, qualification and competence of the nominee. The Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu had earlier raised concerns over the nomination of Kisi Ajabeng as Special Prosecutor, arguing that the nominee lacks the credentials and weight needed to combat corruption. Ms. Osei Mensah Bonsu, in an interview with my colleague Kwesi Pakawosen, however, observes that the competence of the nominee cannot be determined by the Minority Leader, but rather members of the committee.
Well, you want Parliament to expedite action by giving the sensitive position. You also want Parliament to do a thorough job on the background of the person to establish the fact that he has the competence, the qualification, the eligibility, and the competence to handle his portfolio. So we want them to do a thorough job. I would want to see a thorough job done by Parliament on the nominee by the President.
So for now, we don't have a date for when he will be vetted by the committee?
It is not for me to establish the date. It's for the committee to establish their own date. And as I indicated, the chairman and some of the senior members are outside the jurisdiction. So they would, upon their return, establish the date for the special prosecutor.
From the grapevine, you are told that the minority is upset and unhappy with the appointment of Kisi Ajabeng as the special prosecutor nominee. For you as a leader, is there a way you are engaging them to ensure that perhaps he goes through the vetting successfully?
Well, you are the first person to break the news to me. Nobody has told me about that.
The question is capabilities, the question is competence.
Well, it will be established by the committee. If he's not competent, the vetting would bring it out. It would not lie in the mouth of an individual to say that he's not competent, right? Or he's not eligible, or he's not qualified. It will be established by the committee. As I'm saying, his own position is a peculiar one, and he wants Parliament to be thorough in order to establish that he has both the qualification and eligibility criteria, and that he has the competence to deal with his office. To me, these are the three matters that you should be looking at.
And you are confident that the committee will do a good job? Because in the past, I mean, members of the committee, especially the chair of the committee, has been accused of shielding some of the nominees that who appeared before them.
Which nominees?
Oh, well, they mentioned specifically Madam Howard Kumsin and Kojo Ponkum at some point. That the chair was shielding them.
Ultimately, they came to be voted on in Parliament. Right. And what were the results? Howard Kumsin, that people were saying, that you are saying, people were saying was being shielded by the chairman. Of the three who were subjected to votes in the House, she scored highest. So, was there any truth in that allegation?
Well, some residents of Eshim, a suburb of the Sekondi Takrady metropolis of the eastern region, have blocked a major road in protest at the poor nature of roads in the area. Western Regional Correspondent Inathalia Kwansa reports.
The angry residents, who were clad in red bands and chanting war songs, blocked the main road from Impinson Junction to Eshem amidst the burning of car tires in the middle of the road. They said heavy trucks conveying sand from a company in the area have contributed to the road developing huge potholes. Trucks could be seen stranded in the middle of the road, with other road users finding it difficult to get to their destination. Here's Isaac Akumati Nyamiche, a stranded worker in one of the communities.
In fact, we've not heard anything. Why can we be conveyed with such narrow promises? In fact, from about 5 years coming, this is the same promises we've been hearing. We even thought he is coming to tell us that Friday machines are coming to grade the road and start serious work. The late Honorable KKSM last 2 years gave us the same promise. I don't know whether it's a written note that they read before coming here. We can't accept these promises. No, we are not convinced at all.
But the charged residents say they will keep the road blocked until they see contractors on the site ready to commence work. The protesters are from 6 communities along the Nchamban Junction to Mantu Road in the Sekondi Takoradi area. In Sekondi Takoradi, they say their plea over the years to the city authorities for the road to be fixed have been ignored for many years. In Athalia Kwansa's reports for JoyNews.
In Athalia Kwansa with that report. The Kumasi unit of the Multimedia Group has launched the 2021 edition of the Love FM High School debate at the Kumasi City Mall. The previous 2 editions saw T.I. Ahmadiyya SHS and St. Jerome SHS win the trophy. Love FM's Kwesi Deborah has more in this report.
It is now or never. The golden opportunity to show the world what you got is with us. The enviable platform, Love FM High School Debate, is back. The time young ones contribute to national discourses. The moment to show the world you write, you speak, therefore you are, is being outdoors today. What are you waiting for? Pick your quill and parchment, scribble and deliver. Are you worth it? Show me, tell me. Prove your worth. Stand out. Many prospective winners. 1 crown champion.
Over 70 schools contested at the zonal qualifying stage, which was categorized in phases. 16 schools, including Presby SHTS, Ghana Muslim Mission, Prempeh College and Adventist Girls SHS, have qualified for the main competition. Others are Thiakubiampem Girls SHS, Anglican SHS, St. Hubert Seminary, Fomena Tia Amas, KNUST SHS, Tia Amas Kumasi, and Prezi SHS Bompata. Semi-finalists in the previous edition gain automatic qualification to the next contest. They are St. Monica's Girls SHS, Opokuwari School, Tepa SHS, and St. Jerome SHS. Mr. Isaac Enchi is Marketing Manager, Multimedia Group Kumasi.
This year, we began from the zonal level where about 80 schools debated in the prelims, and I'm sure most of you were witness to it. Debaters took turns arguing out their stance on the motions given as judges carefully scrutinized their arguments to give necessary evaluation. In all, the more distinct schools proceeded to the next stage of the competition, and now we have 16.
One of the judges, Dr. Peter Arthur, an English lecturer at the KNUST, explained the new dynamic of this year's competition.
See, if you say something and it's said in the rules, you have to make sure there is consistency. And it's consistency that will give you credibility. And in that grain, you have to make sure you provide your evidence and your proofs. Now, let me go this way. You will have to make sure that your conclusions are foolproof. You understand that? That you make a claim, defend the claim, and the conclusion is foolproof.
Ashanti Regional Director of Education, Ms. Mary Usefrie, was hopeful the competition will give impetus to the Writers and Debaters Society in the various schools. The PRO, Mark Ofori, spoke on her behalf.
The Writers and Debaters Society of the Ashanti RSLC was formally formed to give a platform to students with debating and writing skills to nurture their talent whilst in school. The sustenance of the high school debate will therefore be a good platform for the active survival of the WBS, that is the Writers and Debaters Society.
Well, first of all, my name is Dankwa Asidu Bwatin, a student of St. Tibet Seminary Senior High School. And what you should expect from us is we are aiming towards kicking PC boys out of this contest. And this for sure. All our preparations are...
Main sponsor of the event, Jackson Educational Complex, will give over 7,000 CDs and educational materials to the winners. The debate is set to be aired on Joy Prime and Joy Learning channels on Multi TV. The 2021 Love FM High School debate is in partnership with the Ghana Education Service, the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, the Ashanti Regional SRC, and the Writers and Debaters Society. Reporting for JoyNews, Kwesi Deborah.
And before we go, no school from the Volta region has won the National Science and Maths Quiz Trophy since its inception 28 years ago. And there is a burning desire to win the ultimate prize, as Chief of Sokwe Foy Charlie III says authorities in the region are doing everything within their power to end the trophy draft. We'll be telling you more of that story when Maxwell Agbagba joins us subsequently. But let's take a break here for sports, and Gary Al Smith is standing by.
Thank you for staying with us on The Pulse. I'm Gary Al Smith with the sport. And way before that Champions League final and all the drama, we are talking about the Euros, because we are 17 days until kickoff of the tournament. It starts on the 11th of June. And as you know, you can experience it live with the multimedia group. In the last week or so, the various European teams have been announcing their squads. Yesterday, we told you about Spain dropping Sergio Ramos. Today, the hugely anticipated squad announcement for England is in, but it's a provisional one, interestingly. Goalkeepers of that 33-man squad: Dean Henderson of Man United, Sam Johnstone of West Brom, Jordan Pickford of Everton, and Aaron Ramsdale of Sheffield United. And then, of course, we have got, for the defenders, Trent Alexander-Arnold. The big news is that he makes it into the provisional squad. Will he be in the final team? That has to be named before June the 1st. Ben Chilwell, Chelsea. Conor Gody, Wolves. Ben Godfrey, Everton. Reece James, Chelsea. Harry Maguire, Man United. Tyrone Mings, Aston Villa. Luke Shaw, Man United. John Stones, Man City. Kieran Trippier, Atleti. Kyle Walker, Man City. And Ben White of Brighton. Going to the midfielders. There you see Jude Bellingham of Borussia Dortmund, Jordan Henderson of Liverpool, Jesse Lingard, West Ham on loan from Man United, Mason Mount, Chelsea, Calvin Phillips, Declan Rice of West Ham, and James Ward-Prowse of Southampton. For the forwards is Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Mason Greenwood, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling, and also Oli Watkins of Aston Villa. So what do you think of the squad? Is this a team that can win the Euros? Anyway, My colleague Oriku Ampofo is here to run the rule over it with us. Rax, thank you for joining us as always. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Now, how is the England squad to your reckoning?
I think it's one of arguably the best squads heading into the tournament, and to think of being in the position of Southgate, having to drop a further 7 players from this team, looks a bit hectic. And you look at each position; they seem to have form players, and I think that's what's crucial for them. It's not just about names, but they do have players who have performed really well this season. So, in an era where you do not have an outright squad, maybe France, but you do see England having it in them to go far in this tournament.
I mean, England and tournaments, we know what it's like, the stories that can come out of. But on purely a meritorious basis, players like Trippier, people are asking why Trippier, shouldn't he? Kieran Trippier, yeah.
Well, yeah, so for national team football, it's not always about, form and who's playing well and who is not. You see Raheem Sterling there, and he's not had the best of seasons. And that's because if you look at the calendar, Southgate would get probably roughly 2 weeks with these players before the Euro starts. So it's not the time to call players that you're not familiar with. National team coaches love to work with players that they know. They play in a particular system. So he would call players who know how to play in a particular way or how they do want to play. And so merits, yeah, that's fine. But sometimes coaches also love to call players that they work with. And that's why you see, guys such as Raheem Sterling, even Henderson, who has barely played in the last 3 months, still in the squad.
Yeah. So a lot of the chatter going into the next couple of days, they have to whittle it down by a lesser 7 before midnight of the 1st of June 2020. Just purely from what you see on the surface, without seeing them in training, who would you drop? Just a few names, maybe not all the 7, but who are your sure bets? Yeah.
That would be tough, but you'd assume they'll pick only 3 keepers, so one would be cut off from there. In terms of the defenders, for Ben White, I think it might come too soon. And also, he has 4 right backs as things stand. I do not know his plan, but he might probably drop one of them between Trent, Walker, and then Trippier and, Reece James. One of them might be dropped. And in midfield, I don't know about the fitness situation with Jordan Henderson, but if he's not fit enough to play, he might not go as well. And then Jude Bellingham, I think he's still a bit too young. Prowse, I think he offers something special, so he would be going in terms of set pieces and, of being an engine in the middle. Up front, I think between Calvert-Lewin and Watkins, one of them might be dropped. And Bukayo Saka as well, I think he's too young. This comes too early for him.
Wow,
so
interesting. This is going to really rent opinion in England. And thank you for your time, Rax. He's given us a bit of a preview as to how heated things can be. Bukayo Saka, he feels is too young. Calvert-Lewin, I know he has a big fan base, especially in Ghana because of his style. And some of the goalkeepers, you have a feeling that Aaron Ramsdale will not make it. In the defense as well, 4 right backs. That's quite much and all that. Anyway, the discussions will continue, but don't forget that on social media, Joy Sports and the rest of the multimedia group handles have all the juice when it comes to UEFA Euro 2020. 17 days more. Who is your money on? I'm Gary Al Smith.
Well, let me part ways with you here, but I'm leaving you with Let's Talk Showbiz, which is how we wrap up the entire show. Remember that there is more news at myjoyonline.com, and I'll urge you to log on. Stories most read so far: a coup to use double salary and other criminal cases to negotiate for ministerial approvals. That's Martin Amidu, the former special prosecutor, talking there. The other stories are on My Joy Online, and remember, it comes with the social media handle, so you can easily share them with your contacts, so they know what's happening. My name is Gifty Andopia. It's been a good day. Let's do this again tomorrow, God willing. Many thanks for your time. Do stay tuned for Let's Talk Showbiz. Very interesting interview for you.
And well, she is in Ghana. be excited about it. Maybe I need to check out my, styling lessons and all of that. Hi, Tameka.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Is this your first time in Ghana?
This is my first time in Ghana. I love it. Thus far, it's been great. I've only been here 4 days now. Yeah.
Now, I mean, being your first time, one would be wondering what would take you all the way from the United States to Ghana?
You know, I've been wanting to come. It's been a couple of years overdue. I missed the year of the return, and I said it happened during my birthday, so I was planning something else. But this year, my son graduated from college, and I decided to bring him as a gift, as a graduation gift. And while here, we decided to kind of kill two birds with one stone. We did a football clinic. We're kind of introducing American football here, and my son is a quarterback, so it's been great.
I hope he's also loving it in Ghana.
He absolutely loves Ghana. So I have a charity called Kyle's World Foundation, and the decision was to come here and do an American football clinic, but also do it in the name of Kyle's World. So the foundation sponsored it, and it was great. We had a huge turnout. Initially, I know my son said about 90 children, but there was more like 100 children there, maybe 100, 102 children. And we had a great time. They had lunch, and we gave them, bags and all kinds of cool stuff. They got little cool things to bring home.
Now, hearing some of your works and the people you've worked with is so exciting to hear. But how did it feel working with all these great people, Jay-Z, Lauryn Hill? I mean, all these amazing people.
It's just another, it's another day at work. I think people are people. Everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. No one has a magic science. They are phenomenal people, extremely talented. Jay-Z, it goes without saying, his work precedes him. Lauren, we learned a lot together, working together. It's been a very rewarding career.
I know you mentioned about the foundation with Carl and everything. It's been years since he passed on. How is the family taking, knowing that this was somebody you loved so much, your mother, he was so dear to your heart. How has it been with all these years without him?
It's difficult. I mean, obviously it's just kind of a one day at a time process. But one thing I did learn is that you live life to its fullest. And, no day is ever promised to anyone. So I live in his honor. I feel like I owe it to him to live really a full life and honor him in every way I can.
So you want to do the foundation here in Ghana where you can start the American football thing here as well?
That would be amazing. That would just be amazing. That's, more for my son Ryan, who actually plays football. But I would love to see Ghanaian children, have the opportunity to experience American football. I would love that.
I didn't take much of your time, but I hope you enjoy your stay here in Ghana. And most definitely, we'll visit you before you go back.
Yes, for sure. Let's talk again. It'd be great. Thank you.
Like I said, this is my best body of works yet when it comes to a collection of songs for an album, because we've grown to this point where, we decided to represent Ghana and the rest of the world on a body of work. So the diversity was felt in there, or it's in that album, and it did so well within a period like this. So that tells you that the people like it and they gravitated to it, and therefore, there's a need for me to continue to push this album, because my body of works you don't drop an album and leave it there. So this is actually part of the plan, and successfully we've been able to make it happen, although the pandemic,
Exactly my point. I mean, it didn't deter you off. I don't know whether it was because you knew your fans love you. You know that Anloga was so good an album that people were going to come regardless.
It's a combination of both, but not on the level of arrogance. As in you've taken everything for granted, kind of, I know that, I know, no. you know. So I'm forever grateful for, you know, the turnout and the level of support that I get. I believe that it is worth it because your food partner piano, so I'm really thankful. You feel me?
From the very word go, you had to push this particular event like 2 different dates. Were you glad you lived up to this particular point? Because 3 stages, 1 show. Was this the original plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. Like it would have been just a backdrop thing, but we had to add some more days. That's how come the change of date. You know, to be able to pull this through as well, because irrespective of the times we're in, there's a need to maintain the standards or up it up, and I think we just upped, you know, it up once more. So big respect to everybody who came. The concert was amazing. Thanks to everybody who logged on online to also stream.
Are we going to have a 2-year anniversary?
Who knows? By then it would have grown so much, it wouldn't need a birthday. You know, we celebrate it every day and at every event. Yeah.
Does it mean probably the next album is going to, outweigh it, looking at your body of work and how important Aloga is to you?
The next album is also going to be distinctive because I don't do any album to outweigh the other album. They all have different missions. So the next album is also going to be another level that people would appreciate.
The purpose for which you did this particular album, have you achieved it?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have. I have achieved it in a sense that, listen, this is a classic body of work that has hit the highest of all my albums. So assuming this album didn't do well like my last album, then that's flop. But this album did well more than my last album.